Joost Tromp, you are Global Head of Data Intelligence and Head of Continental Europe Research and Data Intelligence at CBRE. Thank you for joining us on BiTV.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me.
CBRE recently published its 2022 EMEA Outlook report. As we hopefully enter a period of recovery, what are some issues that investors should keep in mind as they define their strategies for the coming year?
Yeah, a good question. As we've already seen unfolding in 2021, which obviously was a very strong recovery year, but catching up on a growth lost during the initial year of the pandemic, we saw the economy unfolding in a way where parts of the economy was growing really strongly and other parts were lagging or struggling. And I think that is a way to describe the recovery in the real estate markets as well. And we anticipate that to continue into 2022. So what we are clearly seeing is, if you look at the investment market, for example, investors investing a lot into the living segment, multifamily in particular, but also other parts of the residential market. And obviously logistics has benefited strongly as well. And initially, there were expectations that the office market would continue to struggle for a lot longer. But what we've seen in the second half of the year is that increasingly capital is finding its way back into the office market as well. But that doesn't mean that all parts of the real estate market are growing as quickly as the headline numbers would suggest.
Okay, thank you. And therefore, also in the report, CBRE expects investment volumes to increase by up to 5% in 2022, which would represent a return to pre-pandemic levels. Therefore, maybe the question, what sectors do you see benefiting the most from this upward trend?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we put the Outlook 2022 out, and that was early December, we didn't know at that time yet how strong the fourth quarter would be. So if you look at the total investment volume that we've achieved in 2021, it became the best year ever. So this Q4 was so strong that ultimately the year ended up 20% higher than 2020, which was tremendous. I have to say that there were a couple of very large platform transactions, M&A transactions taking place in the fourth quarter that really moved the needle. Example being a very large ticket in Germany that was over 20 billion. That changed the picture a bit. But yeah, that 5% for 2022, that is still the expectation we have. So in short, the market will keep on growing. And that comes back to the points that I mentioned before. Multifamily, strong and will remain strong. Logistics, very strong. But increasingly, we are seeing the large office sector picking up as well, which ultimately should lead to a larger investment market in total. And therefore, I feel pretty comfortable with that 5 to 10% growth in 2022.
You mentioned offices which have been, let's say, pushed around a little bit by the pandemic, and we have seen on the market what you call in the report as a flight to quality approach. Do you see this flight to quality approach continue to dominate CRE markets in 2022? And maybe if so, how do you see yields evolve in the coming year?
Yeah, definitely. That flight to quality, I think, is already very visible in the office market in particular. It is generally applicable, but in particular to the office market, I would say. And that is a very old trend. I mean, that's not a new trend, but what is new, and you asked me about some of the key trends in the investment market, is the trend towards ESG, sustainability. And that is what is currently really driving the office market. So what we are seeing is that investors are primarily focused on that higher quality end of the office market. We are seeing that the deals are taking place in that part of the market and less so in the lower quality segments of the market. And I expect that to intensify. But that doesn't mean that the lower quality buildings will not get sold. But I think in terms of pricing, we will see discounts for the lower quality buildings. And with that, investors and developers will have the possibility of redeveloping older assets and transform them into more future compliant, sustainable buildings, whether they are going to remain to be offices or going to be partially transformed into other sectors. We've seen that happening as well, multifamily, for example. That is to be seen, but that is a very clear and the clearest trend, I would say, that is coming out of this pandemic.
Okay, but thank you very much for this insight and for your time, and thank you all for joining us. See you soon on BiTV.
Thank you very much.